welcome back to my channel, and for today's video we're going to talk about the difference between renting and buying a property, which is the better and which one suits you the best. Now that being said, little disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor, I'm not an estate agent, I do not work in the banking industry, so all of this tip and advice is completely from my own experience, my own research and my own understanding. That being said, let's get into this video. So, first things first, what is renting and what is buying? So essentially, buying a property is kind of what it says. It means that you own that physical house. Every brick, every inch of that house is yours. You own it. It is yours. Your name is on the deeds of the house. Now, renting means that you are essentially paying the owner of that house to live there. So you don't own it, you are just a tenant in that house. So renting and buying a house are obviously two completely separate things, but they are necessary and they are helpful in some circumstances. Now, buying a house. As I said, buying means you own it. Now, there's lots of pros, and there's also a lot of cons when it comes to buying a house. Now, when you buy a house, the first obvious thing that is a pro is it's yours. If you want to paint the walls bright green, if you want to have carpet, if you want to have, I don't know, a brand new kitchen installed, or if you want to have a pet, you can do that. It's your house. You can have who you want round when you want. You can do anything essentially because you own the entire thing. So unless obviously you want to have like an extension built or something like that, then you need planning permission, but essentially everything is yours. Another pro is asset appreciation. That essentially means that, say for example, today we was to pay £300,000 for a house, it's likely that in 10-15 years it could possibly be worth £400,000, £500,000 because the market price does go up every year. Obviously at the moment with Corona and everything like that, house prices have dropped considerably, which is helpful if you're trying to buy a house, but it's also not helpful if you're trying to sell a house because then you're losing the appreciation. But because we've all heard our grandparents, our parents, and they're basically saying to us that they managed to buy a house back when I was your age. I managed to buy a house for like £50,000, and we're sitting there like, thanks, that's what I need for a deposit. So we all know that house prices do naturally go up. Now, a negative side of buying a house is the fact that if anything goes wrong, whether that be a boiler, whether that be a leak, whether that be a broken window, you have to pay for it because you own it. You have to pay for it. Obviously, if you have home insurance or something like that, then you've got methods to help you pay for it because you're essentially paying monthly for something that could happen. But if anything goes wrong, it's your problem essentially. That being said, another negative side of thing, which I am experiencing at the moment, is houses are expensive. They are expensive. Trying to buy a house is expensive. Not only do you have to pay a deposit, which can be like 5 to 20% of a house, but you've then got the legal fees, you've then got the stamp duty on top, which is something that the government likes to throw on top as sort of saying, you want to buy a house, here's an extra bill. Well, that being said, first time buyers do have a discount on stamp duty. So for argument's sake, for example, let's say Betty wanted to buy a £300,000 house. She would then have to put 10% deposit down, which would be £30,000. She then might have to put £3,000 legal fees, and that includes, say, I don't know, insurance, council tax, water bills, like let's just say for example an extra £3,000, and then on top of that she's then got to pay for the furniture, which could be anywhere between say £1,000 to £3,000 depending on what you want to buy and how much you've already got. So straight away she's got to find at least, say, 35 to £40,000 straight away, because she's got to do all these things. And if you think about it, at the moment with coronavirus, where before you could buy a house with a 5% deposit, that would have been, say, £15,000. But now banks won't accept that, and at the moment you'll be lucky to find somewhere that will take 10,000. So now, where before you spent years saving up for, say, a 5% deposit, and you've got your £15,000 sitting in your hand, the banks are now saying, no, you need at least £15,000. So it's just taken you 2 years to save that 15,000, and then you've got to go and save an extra 30 on top of that. So houses are expensive, and as the market price goes up, the extra bills that go with buying a house go up as well, essentially. That being said, I'm not telling anyone you shouldn't buy a house, but it is a long process, and it is something that takes a lot of savings, which you could refer to my other video if you're trying to find ways how to save money. But it is hard, and it's not necessarily something that you can do overnight. That if you can do it with someone else, whether that be your partner, a family member, a trusted friend, then you can collaborate to savings to make it a bit quicker. But essentially, buying a house is expensive. Now, renting. Renting is another form of having a house, but you do not own the house. So you do have a home, but you don't have a house. Now, renting is where you're paying the owner rent, essentially, to live in their property. So you're essentially paying their mortgage each month, because they're not paying it, you are, because you're paying them to live in a house that they're not living in. So a pro of living in a rented house is that you can be flexible. If you want to leave tomorrow, you can leave tomorrow, obviously depending on your contract. If you want to move different cities, you can move different cities quite quickly. Whereas compared to living in a house, you'd have to wait for someone to buy your house before you could move. And then you've got to wait for the person that you're buying off of to be able to let you move into their house. So it's a long process. But renting means that you can go when you want to go. Another pro of renting is that you don't have the responsibility if something goes wrong. Of course, if it's your fault, then you have to pay. But if there is a leak or anything like that, then you just call the landlord and they have to deal with it. It's not your problem. But that being said, a negative of renting is that it's expensive in the short term. Because if you think back to my previous example, Betty, she might be paying £1,000 a month, just a rough guide. She might be paying £1,000 a month, but she owns that house. But then you might be paying somebody £1,200 a month to live there, and it's never going to be yours. So in the short term, it's expensive because you're essentially just chucking money away, because you're never going to own it. You're just going to live there temporarily. Another negative is you can't do what you want to do in the house in terms of decorating. So if you wanted to paint the walls, or you wanted to hang a painting up, you have to get permission. If you want to have pets, you have to ask permission. If you leave the house when you move out in a certain state and the landlord is happy with it, then you're going to be charged for it. So there's pros and cons when it comes to everything. Now, if you can rent and save for a house at the same time, I think that's a brilliant combination, because if you know the area really well that you want to move into, like purchase a house, then that's fine, that's brilliant. You know exactly where you want to live, you know the area, you know the streets, you know the shops, that's fine. But if you're moving to an area that you've never lived before, you don't necessarily know if you're going to like it or not. There's only so many trips there of a weekend you can do to find out if you like it. So that's where renting can come handy, because you could quite easily rent a property there for, say, 6 months, see if you like the area, and if you don't, then you haven't then strapped yourself down for life by getting a mortgage for a property in that place. Or if you then love the area, you've only wasted 6 months of your life, essentially, by renting, you can then buy a property in that area and you know exactly where you want to go. You might even fall in love with the area a little bit more. But it just means that if you can do both, it means that you can test areas, see what you like, see what you don't like. Do you want to live on the west side? Do you want to live on the south side? Do you like the train tracks? Do you like anything? Do you like the parks? You can find out exactly what you want. Find out what it's like getting to work. Because you could have this perfect area in your mind, and then all of a sudden you move there and you realise it takes you twice the amount of time to get to work. So it's little things like that renting can come really helpful for, because you can test the waters. That being said, so thanks so much guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave me a comment down below. If you have any suggestions or any useful tips, links or anything like that, please leave them below. But I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye!